Okay, we're back for another HAF Reacts. It is the 22nd of January, and we are in my kitchen rather than, as Raj describes, in my ever so professional background by my desk. That's because we'll get to it, but this episode, we weren't going to record one this week, but some stuff came out, some reaction to a podcast I did, or other podcasts, That's So Hindu, and it's all about me, so I figured we'll be in my kitchen this week. But before we get to that, there's not a lot going on. It's a little bit, all quiet before the storm or something, I wonder, but there's not that much going on in the world of reacting to things. There's no, I don't know, the anti-Hindu hatred wave that we saw at the end of last year isn't so strong anymore. And in fact, I was expecting it to be, because Raj can make the great announcement that, our second lady is pregnant, Usha Vance is pregnant, which will be the first second lady that is pregnant in the White House in modern times, apparently. So, Raj, you want to, for those that haven't heard the news, and anything about Usha you want to add? Like,
I
I
mean,
talk
Mazel
about her
Tov.
like she's like my friend. I've never met her.
Yeah, I mean, Mazel Tov, Usha. Like, good for you. I mean, it's very interesting because I think a lot of people they sort of have this hope or fantasy that maybe she's some prisoner in this marriage and she secretly hates everything that's going on and is some moral authority. And there have been a lot of very interesting people parodying Usha. I've seen them of multiple races. I've seen an East Asian Usha, a white Usha, basically all playing kind of some similar kind of skit where basically JD Vance is evil and conservative, and Usha is secretly just playing appearances and is really hates him, but clearly I mean, they're having a kid, so I don't think she really hates him that much. And I think you also have on the other end where I mean, I've seen memes of Usha as a couch, where if you've if you followed the campaign, and if you've read, I believe it was Hillbilly Elegy or one of the books. Yes, I mean, he was very upfront. I guess pretty brave, if you want to phrase it that way, about his past relationships with couches.
What was he doing with couches?
Do we want to get into that? We
I mean,
probably don't.
this is a family show. Although I have dropped an F-bomb on this show a few times already.
Yeah,
So,
that doesn't count anymore.
um,
Our cussing doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, sometimes when a man and a couch fall in love and want to simulate having a chair,
We'll leave it to the listener's
having a chair?
imagination.
I have never done this. This has never occurred to me to do.
We'll leave it to the viewer's imagination, and won't take it any further.
Okay, I mean, the thing is before Samir, if you've got anything to say, I was really expecting Nick Fuentes to come out with some more race traitor stuff right now, and he hasn't. As far as I know, I guess he hasn't come out from under whatever little trolley bridge he lives under. But
he's been partying
a
lot.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, he went out with Tate. There's a clavicular, whatever like that little group of people is.
Wait, who did he go out with? Sorry.
I think it was Andrew Tate, and then there's this guy.
But isn't he Muslim? So why would he go be seen with him?
Andrew Tate is Muslim?
Yeah, he had converted to Islam.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I pretend like I know things. I clearly don't know. The good stuff.
Yeah. So how does that not affect his street credibility, I guess, in the circles that he moves in? Shouldn't.
I mean, it's about as logically coherent as an African American artist composing a song in praise of Adolf Hitler.
But that African American artist then repented and got rabbis involved.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's very. I mean, there have been a lot of jokes about this online, but it really does seem true that like even today, like you can't even get like a pure white person to be racist now, to be the white supremacist. Like I guess they've opened it up, to
open
DEI,
borders.
but then, open borders.
Like, there's kind of like a DEI program for white supremacists.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because for too long, people of color have been excluded from being white supremacists, influencers, and so.
So I have to a small diversion here. Do you guys were you guys fans of Dave Chappelle by any chance, or are you fans of Dave Chappelle?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he used to do all his skits? And skit where there was an African American guy who was blind, who was actually a KKK member, and he didn't realize.
Yeah,
that's what it brings up.
Okay. Apologies if that wasn't funny for people. We had a good time. But let's move on to the thing that I wanted to
White
talk about.
supremacy is no laughing matter.
What? Racism's not a laughing. If you can't laugh at the stupidity of racism, I don't know what you're going to do in the world. But the whole reason we did this is because my good friend, the woman who I gave a twitching eye to at a conference once, Audrey Truschke, professor, decided to take on a little bit of a podcast I did. Before I bring up what she said, I did a podcast. It just came out last Thursday with Richa Karmakar, a lovely journalist at Religion News Service who covers Hinduism and is herself Hindu. We talked about Hinduphobia, Islamophobia, and all these things. So this is let me share my screen, what Audrey decided to newsjack this one into. Let's see if this works. Okay, so here we go. That is, Audrey, is, quote, Hinduphobia a serious accusation? Nah, says HAF leader, we use the term too much. Even Hindu nationalist leaders call bullshit on their propaganda sometimes. First of all, I wasn't aware that I was actually a Hindu nationalist leader. For those that don't know, this is apparently what a Hindu nationalist leader's kitchen looked like. But she gets my
I didn't
title.
realize they were so open-minded. I mean, like, was there like a memo to, allow the foreign barbarians to join the Hindutva movement or whatever? Like, how did you break that glass ceiling?
Yeah, I don't know. But she's got my title wrong. Audrey, if you're listening to this, I'm actually senior director. So I just wanted to bring this back because sorry, where are we unsharing this? What? There we go. Because she's making it sound like I was trying to say that Hinduphobia isn't a thing. First of all, I don't like the term Hinduphobia, but this is a game we played, like Islamophobia. They got in first and used the dash phobia thing. I think anti-Hindu hatred is better. But you play with the toys you're given sometimes. I do think Hinduphobia exists. We saw it. We saw all sorts of straight up anti-Hindu bigotry in the past 6 months expressed online. We've seen it expressed in public in the US across all sorts of things. What I was saying, just to put it down in case Audrey watches this, she does apparently, is that I think we all have to have a thicker skin about some of these things. And not every little thing that we call a microaggression should be called Hinduphobia. If you've got criticisms of Hinduism, by all means, let's hear them and let's have a discussion. Along with, if you've got criticism of Islam about treatment of women or jihadism or any of these things which are philosophical, metaphysical, cultural ideas, we should have those without calling them such. But that said, there are actually bigots against Islam, just like they are against Hindus based upon their being malformed humans in their brain. So that said, anybody want to back me up on this? Tell me I'm an idiot for doing this podcast or what?
No, I mean,
Anybody?
well, I won't call you an idiot, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think it's anytime you have a nuanced conversation on any subject, you are attacked by people that only think in black and white terms, like Audrey Truschke. I don't even know to what level she thinks in general. But that being said, for whatever it's worth, right? You had a very nuanced conversation with Richa and discussing these things, and I think it goes back to similarities with the concept of bullying, right? Like when we were growing up, there were certain behaviors that occurred in the playground or in school that were not technically considered bullying as they are today. And I'm not saying that, I'm, say that all type of, behavior on the playground is acceptable, but certain things you just kind of like talk, shit with your friends and kind of just said things.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that all of it rises to the level of bullying. And the other thing it does is it undermines those actual real bullying incident, because then people think that, oh, you're just saying everything is bullying and therefore nothing is really bullying. So I think there's a similar analogy to anytime we talk about hatred or phobia towards any particular group, whether it's Hinduphobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, etc., that, any type of criticism is automatically considered that it's fair game to have that discussion. It's a very nuanced discussion, and it's an important discussion to have, because then it does undermine the real incidence of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and Hinduphobia. And so I think it's ridiculous that she would pick up something like that. But again, are we really surprised, that this is something that Audrey is doing, right? I mean, I'm not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised either. I mean, I just don't want, and this comes for viewers from an internal Slack discussion, that it makes it seem like the reporting that we've commented on here before about HAF's recording of past incidents of anti-Hindu bias in the world we're conceding that those are bunk, because they're not. I can say, like, I haven't reviewed every single one. There are many that go back dozens of years. But I think I will stand by them. I will go out on that limb and say that these were actually incidents of anti-Hindu sentiment. So I'm just leaving it there, because, I guess it got under my skin a little bit, because, it's like you, Samir, as you said, you try to have a nuanced discussion about things, but those people that actually have expressed anti-Hindu sentiment, Audrey, it will use it against you. They don't want to have that nuanced discussion. So.
Yeah, go for it, Raj.
I think also just it's worth kind of pointing out that, and you alluded to this earlier, both of you, that there is considerable debate among Hindus or among Indians on, what is the right way to characterize hatred. Is it Hinduphobia? I don't know if y'all heard the term Hindumesia. Like, there's some people who still are on that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. There is a working definition of Hinduphobia that we had a conference, I believe, a couple of years ago where that was unveiled, and we've discussed it. And I think the other thing that's also worth thinking about, and this is where a big difference between us and, say, some of our friends in India, where, like, the speech laws are very different, right? So, like, say, in an Indian legal context, like, you might be, harming community sentiments is something that is a problem, right? You can go after, you file FIR or whatever, and you can go after that, right? And so a lot of times in situations like that, or maybe in the UK or other countries that have different types of free speech laws than the US, it becomes then a question of, like, if you're going to institutionally endorse a certain type of framework, a phobia, for one group, does that mean that only that group gets to enjoy that type of protection? Or is that going to be applied to someone else, right? And in the case of this situation, it's like, at no point, I think, are we going around saying, like, oh, because someone does scholarship that we don't like, or scholarship that we disagree with, or wanting to have conferences on it, we're not trying to have that prosecuted as an offense, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's an important distinction to make. And I think, and it goes to kind of microaggressions, where there's an entire spectrum of ways to express hate and belittle someone. There are a lot of ways to do that. And a lot of different identity groups and axes to do that. But to deny that there is one, it's very, very convenient, to say that everything else can exist, every type of other hatred can exist, but no one's going to hate you or even try to enact systemic discrimination against you on the basis of your kind of foreign brand of woo that most people don't understand, and all of your pagan rituals and all of these things that are called satanic. But of course, that's never ever going to result in any type of, like, disparate treatment or oppression towards you, because Americans are very tolerant. Like, everyone really loves everyone. Everyone is tolerant towards Hindus, and every time that there is hatred towards Hindus, it's because you deserved it.
Yeah. Or for some other reason, right? The motivation was never because you're Hindu. And that's, I think, that's the larger point. There are levels to this, right? And you kind of pointed out, like, speech laws, right? So something can still be Hinduphobic, and obviously you have to look at the context and what's being said, and it's not punishable under the law, right? And it's well allowed under free speech laws, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not Hinduphobic. At the same time, not everything that is critical of Hindus is Hinduphobic, right? It's a lot of times dependent on the motivation, what's said, the context, etc. And then you have another level where things are beyond just being, anti-Hindu, based on anti-Hindu bias or sentiment, where they rise to the level of a hate crime, right? And so, just saying that not everything rises to the level of Hinduphobia does not discredit the fact that there is actual Hinduphobia and anti-Hindu hate and hate crimes. I mean, for God's sakes, there was just a vandalism at a Hindu temple in Cary, North Carolina, just, I think, last week or so, where the arms of a deity outside the temple were chopped off. If that's not, an example of Hinduphobia or anti-Hindu bias, I don't know what is. But maybe in Audrey's world, it's not. And it's just maybe Hindus that we're doing it to ourselves, or maybe it's just an example of our casteist bigotry that happened, or whatever excuse she wants to come up with while she's eating butter chicken at an Indian restaurant. describing why she hates Indians and Hindus. But in her world, in her bizarro world, that's not an example of Hinduphobia. Nothing is. So, again, there are levels to all of this. A discussion of those different levels does not undermine or does not negate the fact that there are actual and many incidents of Hinduphobia and anti-Hindu hate and hate crimes. At the same time, making sure that we are very clear in what does meet the criteria of Hinduphobia and anti-Hindu hate is also very important.
Yeah, to me, the thing that gets me is when things are done in bad faith. It's a bad faith criticism in the sense of that you don't actually want to have the discussion about it. If you want to have a good faith discussion about the role that, say, caste, to pick probably the most contentious issue we deal with, the caste has for the Hindu American experience, and want to have that in good faith and talk about the nuances of this without resorting to the things that we've seen, like out of equality labs, which does trainings saying that the real Nazis aren't in Europe, they're fucking upper caste Indians. If you want to have that discussion
literal verbatim, by the way, that's verbatim.
yeah,
what was said.
verbatim. I think I don't know if I've shared that on here before, but if you want to have that discussion without resorting to that and without resorting to tropes about, wily Brahmins and all this crap, fine, let's have that discussion. But case in point, a scholar at Rutgers University takes something that we put out as promo for a full Nuanced podcast, takes it entirely out of context and uses it to use her own talking points to try to newsjack it, is bad faith. And I won't go so far as to say that's anti-Hindu sentiment, but it is surely bad scholarship, bad crap, just not even worth my time. But here we are 16 minutes into this call talking about it, so I guess she got our attention. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're a serious scholar, why are you spending so much time on social media anyways, right? I mean, that's another larger question, and that you're kind of taking these like constant jibes and this and that. I mean, that's scholarship, and that's scholarship that we should not question. I mean, the veil that these guys hide behind in trying to say that any attack on them or any questioning of their of their scholarship is suddenly, violation of academic freedom, et cetera, then don't put yourself out there. Don't kind of put your stupid nonsense out there and be constantly on social media if you don't want to be criticized and you don't want to be questioned. Actually do some real scholarship. But that's too much for her. That's too much
she won't have the discussion, and many scholars like her in that on the left side, the anti-Hindutva side, which just, again, to put out there for her when she tries to flip this, by saying that, I don't mean that I am on the Hindutva side necessarily. This is just rhetoric.
Stop with your Hindutva at once.
Yes, I know. I need to stop with my Hindutva at once. But then I want to be a Hindu nationalist leader. But I guess the point is she won't have the discussion. At the event, I went up to her. I don't know if I said this before, but if I hadn't, I went to an event with her at Rutgers and asked, would she debate anybody in the community that has an opposing view? And she will not. I have put this out to her personally through...
Did you ask nicely?
I did. I asked very nicely.
Did you say please?
No, at that point, I did not say please, but I did not try to force myself or force the point. She walked away. I've put it out to her through mutual people we know, through Religion News Association, that we would have a discussion. I would have a discussion. I would take her on the podcast, and if we can do it. But she will not do it because she doesn't seem to want to have that. She just wants to put out her ideas and not be challenged on it.
Yeah. Can I just kind of point out the irony in all of this that's kind of hilarious to me is that on the one side, on the Hindu nationalist side, we have a Caucasian person talking about one position on this.
I don't know. I'm pretty tan right now. Can I pass?
Yeah. Okay. Well, with European ancestry, how's that? And then on the other side of this, on the Audrey Truschke anti-Hindu side, you have another Caucasian person.
Oh, no. Look, man, you're presenting that and laughing, but that's part of the very issue that we deal with at HAF and educational stuff the entire time. You go Wikipedia, go to all these things, and who's talking about it? Who are the scholars? They're people that are white like me.
I mean, because for too long, Indians and Hindus have been monopolizing discussions of India and Hinduism, and that really has got to stop. Because we really need just like more objective people, I guess.
I mean, you need some white people to tell you what you really think and believe.
Yeah, because we had no idea. Like we were just like
Wow.
running around being like, oh my God, what are we?
I mean,
We're just a
shooting in the
collection,
street and all these other tropes. I mean, you needed people like us to civilize, right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because like they would never have discovered the wheel or something,
No,
had it
no, no.
not been
I
for
mean,
the British.
yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know.
Well,
The
not
wheel.
only were you just running around, you were running around in a loincloth in the middle of the forest, doing sacrificial rituals and doing
Right. And
God
coming up with a concept of zero. Please.
Because we came up with the concept zero because we had nothing until the British. That's why we came up with zero. How else could we express, what we had?
Okay.
Oh God.
Once again, I feel like we're degrading our attempts at talking about these serious issues in a lighthearted way. Anything else on Audrey, Hinduphobia or anything, or can we call it a day and spare
Oh,
people?
I think, what it would be really nice, is to just have some appreciation for once, because like, a lot of like academic, topics are very obscure. Most people don't care about them. Had it not been, for the, shall we say, very, colorful relationship between South Asian academics and actual South Asian Hindus who practice Hinduism. Like they would just be like, people who are professors at a school studying an obscure subject that 99.9% of Americans don't give a shit about. But now you were fighting against the forces of evil. You were a victim. You're also a savior. And you're also, someone who is like preserving a civilization and representing an entire civilization of 1.4 billion people, right? So this is giving a lot of meaning. I mean, like, imagine all those poor scholars who like study, I don't know, like Slovenian history, or like, I'm sure even like the East Asia Studies program is less dramatic than this, right? I mean, you just have your classes, like, you're not burdened with representing the entire civilization of Japan or China, right? And you don't have to save them. You just have to sit around and just talk about them, and then you go on your little trips over there, and you have the nice breakfast buffet at the Asian hotels are really good breakfast buffets, by the way.
They do.
They
Everyone
really do.
needs to, yeah.
Oh yeah, Chinese breakfast buffet, I love it. Anyways, like, it's just like, it's not as exciting, right? But like this, like we as people who are just, expressing opinions and responding to scholarship and things said about us, like we have given meaning to this entire field. Like like what profile would any of these people have without us? So it would just be nice to get some appreciation.
Mm.
I mean,
for
I
once.
think one more thing that she has done that has been an absolute credit to society, or kind of a benefit to society, is she has effectively successfully preserved the image and legacy of Aurangzeb. So I think we have to thank her for that. And, it's a lovely job. We're very thankful for that. I'm going to rename my street Aurangabad, or my city name Aurangabad, and rename my streets after him and his greatness. And it's all thanks to her.
Okay, let's leave it there. But I'm going to
Yeah,
give
well-
viewers one thing that you can do about this. You can join me. Go down to your Barnes and Noble right now. Audrey's got a book out, A History of India, and do like what I do. I go in and I turn them around so people can see them. I do this multiple times. I go into the Barnes and Noble by me and I turn them around. I am that sort of petty. So let's leave it there. Thanks, guys.